So let's talk about this. Let's get the easy thing out of the way first. Surgery for trans kids, not really a thing. It's not happening. Very rarely, very, very rarely, in extreme circumstances where someone's life is at risk for reasons, mental health reasons. You might see that happening in 17-year-olds, but again, extremely rare. Other than that, it's not a thing. So, what you call chemical transition is a little more complicated. You might think that the default is to let the body just do what it's going to do, leave well enough alone. And that sounds reasonable on paper. Unfortunately, that's not a neutral choice. Puberty, as we know, changes the body. And some of the ways in which it changes the body are permanent and irrevocable. For somebody who's assigned male at birth, who has testes and whose puberty is driven by testosterone, their voice is going to deepen permanently as their vocal cords thicken. There are surgeries that can correct that, but they're iffy, and that's, a whole surgery. Hair grows on the face. That's permanent. Again, there are hair removal solutions, but that's expensive, it's painful, it's time-consuming, and the process is traumatic. Not the process of hair removal, the process of the hair growth. Hair grows on other parts of the body, too. A lot of times that thins out if a person starts taking estrogen later. The bone structure grows in a different way than it would if there wasn't a whole bunch of testosterone in the system. Particularly, torsos tend to lengthen, hips don't get as wide, shoulders do get wider, and limbs aren't quite as long. And these are all things that really can't be changed. My shoulders and rib cage are real big, and it's sometimes hard to find clothes that fit me because I went through puberty that was dominated by testosterone. For folks who are assigned female at birth, who have ovaries and whose puberties are dominated by estrogen, I'm not as familiar with puberty for those folks because obviously I didn't go through it. Menstruation is a thing that happens that can be, pretty upsetting for folks. And there's other physical changes that occur as well. Breast growth being the most obvious. Again, that's permanent. There's no way to fix that unless you want to have a surgery, and that's expensive, and it's a trauma to the body. It's not a great solution if it can be avoided. So, what the medical establishment and the psychiatric establishment recommend instead is puberty blockers. These are chemicals that block testosterone or estrogen, and they prevent puberty from occurring while they are being taken. And that's critical. As soon as those medications are discontinued, puberty continues as normal. And our bodies are a pretty cool thing. Human bodies are pretty cool in general, right? I went through, again, a testosterone puberty. And then later in my life, I started taking hormone replacement therapy. And I started taking estradiol, and I started eventually taking progesterone. And my body did a lot of the things that are typical for an estrogen-dominated puberty. I had breast growth. My hair lightened, not my head hair, my body hair, lightened and thinned. My skin smoothed out. Somebody who is assigned female at birth and takes testosterone, their vocal cords thicken just like mine did. They start sprouting hair just like I did. So, what I mean by that, what I mean to show is that that's puberty taking place when the chemicals are there, because that's what the body does. Even though I already went through first puberty, my body's like, yeah, we had first puberty, but what about second puberty? So, these hormone blockers are safe and they're effective. There's a lot of science, a lot of research, a lot of data backing up their use. And what you may not know is that they've been used for cisgender kids, that's kids who are not transgender, for a very long time. That is, in fact, why they were developed, I believe, as medications. They've been used for sure, though, regardless, for quite a while. And they're used for things like when the onset of puberty is way too early. You can just use hormone blockers, and then when the regular time comes, you discontinue it, and puberty just happens. The body says, okay, here's these chemicals, I know what to do. They're also used for cases like Swyer syndrome, where you have somebody who is assigned female at birth, but has an XY chromosome, and when they hit puberty, their body starts going through a testosterone-driven, masculinizing puberty. Their bodies change in the way that most boys' bodies change. But most of these people who have Swyer syndrome are, in fact, girls. Most people in the population, of course, are cisgender, so that's no surprise. And so you prescribe puberty blockers to say, hey, we're going to stop this from happening. So hormone replacement therapy, as it happens later. And all of this comes following and in tandem with quite a lot of therapy. It's not like you go down to the doctor and say, hey, doc, I'm 14 and I want some estradiol, give me it. That doesn't happen. It's years and years of therapy. So you're not looking at a case where a child, a teenager, a minor is making a rash, snap decision. You're looking at a situation where they've been living as their identified gender for a long time before any chemical medications that would change their body are prescribed. I'm not super read up on exactly when that happens. I don't know when HRT is typically prescribed for minors, if and where it is. I started HRT as an adult, so I can't really speak to that, and it's something I should look more into for these discussions. But what I can tell you is that it's not happening when someone snaps their fingers. It's happening as prescribed by a medical doctor with the consent of the patient and their parents or guardians, and following the recommendation of a therapist. So, I hope this is, explains some things. Typically, transition for minors consists of therapy, it consists of social transition, as you say, and it consists of puberty blockers, which are reversible. You can discontinue them and puberty continues. When other medical interventions are taken, they're taken after lots of consideration, therapy, medical expertise, psychiatric expertise. They're not undertaken lightly, and they're not happening to elementary school aged kids, which is what I think the right wing is, pushing the idea of course, is people are forcing 8-year-olds to transition. No, that's definitely not a thing. So, happy to talk about this more, but I hope this brief overview was helpful, and I hope you're having a great night.